Hola, muy buenos días, buenas tardes. Espero que todos estén bien y muchas gracias por estar aquí en esta lección 1.3, el verbo ser. Ok, ya vamos a empezar con el PowerPoint. We're going to get started with our PowerPoint here. Make sure you're following along in the PowerPoint and the notes, the lecture notes that are provided just below this lecture. So, first, we're going to talk about subject pronouns, guys. Subject pronouns. And in order to use our verbs, we're going to have to use subject pronouns, okay? Because each verb is going to be conjugated based on the subject pronoun being used. Now, you ask, do we have subject pronouns in English? Do we have verb conjugations? Of course we do. If you think about the verb to do, which would be an infinitive is any verb that is with to, right? Like to play, to cook, to learn, to speak, okay? And those are identified in Spanish by the AR, ER, and IR endings, okay? So those are the three types of infinitives in Spanish: AR, ER, and IR, okay? Verbos de AR, IR, ER. Muy bien. Y todos estos verbos, all of those verbs, tienen conjugaciones diferentes. They have different conjugations. Entonces, para usar estos verbos, in order to use those verbs, necesitamos un sujeto para la frase, ¿no? Un pronombre de sujeto, subject pronoun. Okay, so a subject pronoun replaces the name or title of a person and acts as the subject of a verb. So, for example, when we're talking about replacing a noun, the professor teaches. That's a full sentence with a intransitive verb, meaning the sentence does not require a direct object or an indirect object. So the professor teaches, okay? The professor teaches. The subject would be el profesor, but our subject pronoun would be he, right? Does that make sense? So if I said, you and I are going to the movies. Tú y yo vamos a ir al cine o a las películas, okay? Now, tú y yo, if we think about that in English, you and I, that would be actually we, right? We go to the movies, okay? So you have to make sure that you're using the correct subject pronoun with the correct conjugation. Now, a conjugation is just simply a form of the verb that corresponds with the correct subject pronoun. For example, if we think of the word to be, the verb to be in English, right? I am. You are, okay? The verb is to be, but our conjugations are what match up with our subject pronouns. You are, he is, she is, we are, I am, they are, okay? So those are conjugated forms of the verb to be in the present tense. Mainly in this chapter, we're going to be, in this class, we're going to be learning the present tense of a verb, okay? Now, if you think about to be, I am, the past tense would be I was, or I used to be, right? So we're going to be mainly working in the present tense. Okay, another thing about subject pronouns that I think is important to remember, I'm a video game player, so if you're talking about like a first-person video game, first-person shooter, I like those, like Apex Legends or another first-person shooter, right? You're seeing through the eyes of the character. Whereas you have a third-person game, like a lot of RPGs, role-play games, then you're going to be looking like the God view, right? You're not being able to see through the eyes of that person, but you're looking from outside, right? Okay. Think about first-person narration in a novel, right? It's a bunch of I's. I did this, I do that, I do that. A third-person narration does not have that I voice, right? You're talking about he did this. It's kind of like the all-knowing, the omniscient tense, right? Whereas the second person would be tú, you, right? Second person perspective would be you. Okay, now we have singular and we also have plural different types of subject pronouns: first, second, third person, singular, and plural. So here are singular subject pronouns. Primero, everyone repeat after me: yo, yo. Okay, second person singular would be tú, tú. And also usted. But we're going to look at the difference between tú and usted. We kind of saw that already. that one is familiar and one is formal, right? So the familiar conjugation will be different from the formal conjugation. Actually, usted, which means like sir or ma'am or a very formal address, has the same conjugations as él and ella. Okay, so those are singular subject pronouns. First person, singular, yo. Second person, singular, tú. Third person, singular, él, ella, usted. Ok, muy bien. Y ahora tenemos los sujetos de pronombre, o los pronombres de sujeto, perdón, plurales. Ok, singular, plural, ¿no? Entonces, if you think about this, guys, the first person plural, okay, if it's singular, the first person singular, it'd have to be just one person, right? I, but you're including yourself in that second person. So it's someone else and I, right? So that would be we, nosotros. So the first person plural subject pronoun would be nosotros. Okay, we also have nosotras if it's all females. If it's all a group of females, it would be nosotras. I could never say nosotras, right? And be talking about myself, because if I'm including myself in that conjugation or in that subject pronoun, then just one male will tip the scales and make it nosotros, right? Okay, then we also have vosotros and vosotras. Remember, I do not require you to learn those conjugations or those endings, but those are the forms used for you all, or like y'all in Spain. I say y'all, I don't know where all of you are from, but vosotros, vosotras, that would be y'all in Spain, specifically. Then we have ustedes, right? That'd be third person plural. These were second person plural. We do not use the second person plural in Latin American and Spanish. But the third person plural would be ustedes, you all, right? You all. It's a little more formal, but it's the only use for you all that we have in Latin American Spanish. Okay. Then we have the third person plural of ellos and ellas, right? Same thing here. If it's a group of males or if it's a group of females with a male, it would be masculino, ellos, right? And then if it was a group of all females, it would be ellas. Okay, muy bien. Muy importante to learn this chart. Very important to learn these subject pronouns and your conjugation charts, which we will look at here in just a second. Okay, now Spanish has two subject pronouns that mean you, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but you use two when addressing a friend, a family member, a child you may know, and then you would use usted for someone you respect more, someone you want to have a little bit more formal relationship with. For example, a judge, a superior at work, someone that you might not know as well, grandparents, parents in certain countries are usted. Certain countries you can say tú to your parents. I think that's more family dependent. But you know, things like that. A professor, a older person, someone that you need to address more formally. Someone you'd probably say yes sir or yes ma'am to, which is what I was taught to do when I was growing up. Okay, muy bien. All right, now, so let's look at one of these conjugations of our verbo ser. We have a sentence here, and we're going to talk about identity and origin with this verb, okay? So we're going to be able to say where you're from. You're going to be able to ask someone where they're from. De donde eres, right? From where are you? From where are you? De donde eres? De donde eres? Yo soy de Carolina del Sur. Yo soy de Carolina del Sur. I am from South Carolina, right? Okay, so we have another sentence here. Tú eres de Canadá, ¿verdad, David? Tú eres de Canadá, ¿verdad, David? You're from Canada, right, David? Usted es la profesora de español. Usted es la profesora de español. So as you can see, we have meaning the same thing, you, but a more formal versus informal conjugation. We have tú eres and usted es. Okay, usted es. Bien. Okay, so the masculine plural forms of nosotros, vosotros, and ellos refer to a group of males or to a group of males and females, like I was saying. And the feminine plural form, nosotras, vosotras, and ellas, can only refer to groups made up of exclusively females. Okay? Muy bien, no se olviden. Okay, now in Spanish, there's no equivalent to the English subject pronoun it. Okay, so usted, él, ella, it. It's in the third person singular conjugation. And so even though it is not expressed specifically, it is kind of inherently expressed just with the conjugation. Okay, so you don't need to add a subject pronoun, and it is not expressed in Spanish. So we can just say, if you want to say it's a problem, es un problema. If you want to say it is a computer, es una computadora. So we'll do a little bit of this in our activity that you will have coming up shortly. Bien. So es un problema, es una computadora. It is a computer, it is a problem. So you don't need to say it before you use the verb conjugation. Just use the third person singular conjugation. All right, now let's go ahead and look at the present tense of ser. All right, so we've already kind of looked at some things with este verbo ser, but it means to be, ¿no? Significa to be. Significa to be, right? Significa almost sounds like significance, right? So it means to be. And we use this to identify ourselves and others. We talk about where we're from. We're talking about our profession, our occupation. We're going to use it to tell time. Now, it is an irregular verb, okay? And there are several irregular verbs in Spanish. And we will look at that. And basically what that means is it does not follow the general rules of conjugation that we'll get into in chapter 2. Spanish is a very logical language, except for the irregulars. So these will have to be memorized, but practice will help. So it is an irregular verb, and that's because its forms do not follow the regular patterns that most verbs follow. Being such a short verb, it's hard to fit in the conjugations that would make it normal or regular. Okay, and we'll see that with verbs like ir, which means to go. We'll see that with verbs like dar, to give. We'll see it with verbs like estar, which is also meaning to be. You've probably already seen that a couple of times in this course. ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien. Estoy bien. Okay, so there will be times we will also have to use another verb meaning to be. But this is more talking about permanent things, stuff that to describe people, talk about where you're from, your profession, and so on. Okay, so let's move on. All right, now here's our verb chart here. So in our singular forms, our first person singular form here, soy. Not like the stuff that vegans eat. Well, you don't have to be vegan, I guess. But say yo soy. All right, so if I ask you, ¿de dónde eres? ¿De dónde eres? You would say, yo soy de Georgia. Yo soy de Nueva Jersey. Yo soy de Nueva York. Yo soy de California. Algo así. So, yo soy de Carolina del Sur. O yo soy de México. ¿No? Muy bien. Tú eres. And if you heard the question, ¿de dónde eres? ¿De dónde eres? From where are you? And you would respond with, yo soy de Carolina del Sur. Now, if you wanted to ask where he or she is from, ¿de dónde es él? ¿De dónde es él? O ¿de dónde es ella? Practice that. ¿De dónde es? ¿De dónde es él? Él es de California. ¿De dónde es ella? Ella es de Georgia. Okay, muy bien. Now, the majority of us are probably from Georgia, right? So we would say, somos de Georgia. Nosotros somos de Georgia. We are from Georgia. Okay, so somos. And then ustedes, ellos, ellas, you all, them, masculine, or excuse me, they, masculine, they, feminine. ¿De dónde son ellas? Ellas son de Indiana. Okay, so here are our conjugations one more time. Yo soy, repeat after me. Yo soy, tú eres, usted es, él es, ella es, nosotros somos, nosotras somos, ustedes son, ellos son, ellas son. Muy bien. Okay, now, here we're going to get into a little bit of the uses of ser, los usos del verbo ser, okay? Primero, we're going to use ser to identificar personas y cosas. All right, so if we're talking about este vaso, right? Este vaso de agua. ¿De quién es el vaso de agua? Ay, perdón, we're not there yet. That's possession. Okay, so we're going to identify things. ¿Quién es él? ¿Quién es él? Es Professor Bowers. Or, ¿qué es? ¿Qué es? What is it? Es un vaso. ¿Qué es? Es un mapa de España. ¿Quién es él? ¿O quién es ella? Ella es Gabriela Mistral. Okay, so to identify people. And that's another way you can say your name, right? You can say, as I said in the beginning, yo soy Profesor Bowers. Yo soy Profesor Bowers. Okay, ¿quién eres tú? So you don't have to just say, ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Profesor Bowers, or mi nombre es. That's another thing. Mi nombre es. There's a conjugation we see. And the third person, because you're saying, my name, it is, right? Mi nombre es Marcos. Okay? Or you can say, yo soy Juan, or yo soy Liliana. No? So it's a way to identify people and things. Also, we're going to express possession con el verbo ser using the preposition de, right? Now in Spanish, we don't have the equivalent of using an apostrophe to mark possession, right? You can't say es el vaso, Profesor Bowers's vaso. No se puede, no se puede. Eso no se puede hacer en español. Tiene que decir, you need to say, es el vaso del Profesor Bowers, or es el vaso de Juan. Okay? So what we would do, we would say, ¿de quién es? ¿De quién es el vaso? ¿De quién es el vaso? Es el vaso de Juan, right? Or ¿de quién son? ¿De quién son? Son los lápices de la chica. Now I want you to think a minute. Why would we use differences with es or son? Now let's look at what they're describing. Es el diario de Maru. It is the diary of Maru. Of whom is it? Or we're looking at the plural here. Whose are they? ¿De quién son? ¿De quién son? Son los lápices de la chica. Son los lápices de la chica. So we're going to use a plural conjugation here if we're talking about a plural noun. We're also going to have to use a singular conjugation if we're talking about a singular noun. Muy bien. Okay, now when de is followed by the article el, okay, you've probably heard me say this already, es el vaso del Profesor Bowers, right? We're going to make the contraction del. Now, we'll see this quite often in Spanish, and this happened over a series of hundreds and hundreds of years as Latin evolved into what we know today as Castilian or Spanish, right? It's actually a certain dialect of a Latin language in Spain that was kind of, it was promoted through the Catholic kings in the 15th and 16th centuries, and it was also promoted by the dictator Franco. But there's actually a lot of languages in Spain that people do not realize. You have Catalan, you have Andaluz, you have Gallego, you have Basco. So all distinct languages living in Spain, but the main dialect and the main spoken language in Spain is Castellano, Castilian, or Spanish, no? So if you go to Spain, and especially Argentina, and you say, do you speak Spanish? They're probably going to look at you weird. You want to say, ¿hablas castellano? ¿Hablas castellano? But in Mexico and other places in Central America, you would just say, ¿hablas español? Right? Español. Or castellano, Castilian Spanish, just meaning that's from the Castile region of Spain. Okay, so we'll form the contraction, but basically when that history evolved, people get lazy with what they want to say, right? If you think about, I'm from the South, so we're kind of hillbillies, we're kind of rednecks, right? And my family is, and so my grandmother would say, "Jeet yet?" Right? Which is kind of a very quick way of saying, "Did you eat yet?" Right? Jeet yet? And you'll see this often throughout many languages, is the articulatory force required to say something is too much, right? And naturally, our tendency as humans is to shorten it or to make it easier to say. So it used to be de él, right? De él, but now it's just del. So de does not contract with la, las, or los, just de él. Because if you think about it, you're saying de el profesor, del. It's just easier to say, right? De la is easy to say, de las, de los, but that vowel back to back is difficult to distinguish. So they just said, no, we're just going to mush them together, and it's del now, right? So, es la computadora del conductor. It is the computer of the driver. ¿De quién es? Es la computadora del conductor, right? ¿De quién son? Son las maletas del chico. So you're usually using this contraction in this form with a title or a noun, but not a subject pronoun, right? Muy bien. All right, now, so ser also uses the preposition de to express origin. ¿De dónde eres? Yo soy de Wisconsin. ¿De dónde es usted? Yo soy de Cuba. Okay? So practice that. ¿De dónde eres tú? ¿De dónde eres? Bien, muy bien. Ok, otras preguntas. ¿De dónde es Juan Carlos? Juan Carlos es de Argentina. Okay? Es de Argentina. He is from Argentina. So this is also an important thing to note. Let's go back to our conjugations here. Okay? And talk about a little bit about the use of subject pronouns. Okay, now you're not required to use the subject pronouns because in each word, each conjugation is different, right? So the subject is inherent within the conjugation of the verb. So you can just say, soy de Carolina del Sur. You don't have to say, yo soy de Carolina del Sur. Although many people do use that subject pronoun, and it depends on the country to country of how frequently they are used, okay? But in this instance, we're not using the subject pronoun because we already have some context. We know we're talking about Juan Carlos, right? ¿De dónde es Juan Carlos? We don't need to say, él es de Argentina. We already know we're talking about him, right? Es de Argentina. ¿De dónde es Maru? Maru es de Costa Rica. Maru es de Costa Rica. Muy bien. Okay, now you can also use ser to express profession or occupation. Bueno, you can say, yo soy profesor. Yo soy profesor, right? I am professor. Now, you might think there's something missing there. There's an article missing there, because in English we would say, I am a professor, right? Or I am a student, okay? But in Spanish, no necesita el artículo. No necesita el artículo. So we could say, Don Francisco es conductor. Don Francisco es conductor. He is a driver. Yo soy estudiante. Yo soy estudiante. So go ahead and if you have another career occupation other than student, go ahead and look that up in your Spanish-English dictionary. And I'll ask you the question. ¿Qué haces? ¿Cuál es tu profesión? ¿Cuál es tu profesión? ¿Cuál es tu ocupación? Good cognates, aren't they? ¿Cuál es tu profesión? Yo soy profesor. Tú eres estudiante. Tú eres estudiante. You are a student. Yo soy profesor. I'm a professor. Muy bien. Now, unlike Spanish, as I was saying, unlike English, Spanish does not use the indefinite article after ser when talking about professions, unless you're accompanying it with an adjective or another description, right? So, Marta es profesora. Yo soy profesor. Tú eres estudiante. But if we're talking about a quality of that person, Marta es una profesora excelente. O tú eres un estudiante inteligente. O tú eres una estudiante inteligente. You are an intelligent student. Okay, but when you're just saying your profession, you just need soy profesor, eres estudiante. Okay, muy bien. Somos Perú. Ok, perfecto. Ahora vamos a tener unas preguntas. We're going to have some questions, unas preguntas about el verbo ser, ¿no? El verbo ser. Vamos a hablar del verbo ser Y tienes que responder, another good cognate, respond. You have to respond en altavoz, con hablar, ¿no? So there'll be a speaking assignment with yo soy that will be right under this PowerPoint lecture. So thank you very much, guys. Muchísimas gracias y nos vemos la próxima. Adiós.